Phones recording. Neighbors gasping. Karen, the HOA tyrant, waves a bag of cocaine she planted in my car. My so-called arrest is about to go viral. What nobody knows. I'm the director of the FBI. And in less than 5 minutes, Karen's empire will collapse in front of everyone. The moment I pulled into my driveway, I knew something was wrong. Karen Whitfield, self-crowned queen of Oak Ridge Estates, stood waiting in a neon pink suit that could blind headlights. Her lips curled into a victorious smirk as two of her so-called HOA security guards yanked open my car door. Rick, the bald one with skull tattoos, and Tommy, the giant who loved twirling his nightstick, dragged me out like I was public enemy number one. The crowd was already gathering. Neighbors lined the sidewalks, phones raised, eager to capture the spectacle. Karen thrived on an audience. She strutted forward, heels clicking against the pavement, and waved a tiny plastic bag of white powder like it was the crown jewels. "Ladies and gentlemen," she shrieked. "Caught red-handed. Drugs in our neighborhood." Her voice echoed through the cul-de-sac, sharp and smug. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Some shook their heads, others whispered in disbelief, but all eyes stayed locked on me. Zip-tied, shoved onto my own hood, dirt grinding into my knees. "Michael!" my wife Emily screamed, rushing down the driveway. She tried to push past Tommy, but he blocked her with one thick arm. Her voice cracked as she pleaded. "Stop this. He hasn't done anything." Karen only laughed louder. "Don't defend him, Emily. Your husband is a criminal. HOA law will not be mocked." I stayed silent, breathing steady, watching her milk the drama. Finally, I lifted my head, met her triumphant gaze, and said softly, "Karen, you just made the biggest mistake of your life." To the crowd, I must have looked like just another man exposed by a neighborhood queen. That was exactly how Karen wanted it. But the truth was far from what they imagined. My name is Michael Grant. To the people of Oak Ridge Estates, I was the quiet man trimming hedges on Saturday mornings, waving politely during dog walks, and paying HOA dues without complaint. Nobody knew that I was also the director of the Federal Bureau of Investigation, the very agency Karen had decided to challenge. We had moved here for peace. Emily loved the illusion of normal life after decades of my high-pressure work. And for a while it worked. But peace was impossible when Karen Whitfield lived across the street. Karen was the kind of neighbor who mistook power for purpose. She fined me once because she claimed my grass was an inch too tall. Another time, she said my car was parked at the wrong angle. And when Emily planted roses, beautiful, full red blooms that lit up our yard, Karen slapped us with a $200 fine for unauthorized flora. Emily cried as we cut them down. That was the moment I realized Karen wasn't just a nuisance. She was cruel. Her cruelty didn't stop with us. The Johnsons once paid $500 because their daughter left her bike in the driveway. The Lees almost lost their pool permit because Karen said their water was too loud. Neighbors feared her clipboard and neon suits more than anything. I endured it all, smiling politely, waiting. Because I knew one thing. Bullies bury themselves eventually. And Karen Whitfield was digging her own grave, shovel by shovel. It started small. But Karen thrived on escalation. With her fake security guards, Rick and Tommy, she acted like she ran her own police force. They strutted around the neighborhood in knockoff tactical gear, barking orders like soldiers on patrol. Most neighbors gave in to avoid conflict. They paid fines, cut grass, and smiled through clenched teeth. But Emily noticed Karen's eyes linger on me longer, like she was waiting for me to break. "Michael," Emily whispered one night on our porch. "Just talk to her. I don't like the way she looks at you." I shook my head. Talking to Karen is like reasoning with a hurricane. She doesn't want peace. She wants conquest. Emily sighed, frustration in her eyes. "Then what are you going to do?" I sipped my coffee, watching the sun dip behind the houses. "Nothing," I said. "Not yet. Karen will bury herself. All I have to do is wait." But patience only fueled Karen's obsession. She fined the Lees again, harassed the Johnsons, and began circling me like a shark. It was only a matter of time before she went too far. And when she finally planted those drugs in my car, I knew she had written her own ending. Back in the present, the trap had sprung. Karen strutted across the cul-de-sac like it was a runway, holding up the bag of white powder. "See," she crowed. "Proof. He thought he was better than us. But drugs in Oak Ridge Estates? Not on my watch." Phones zoomed in. Neighbors whispered. Some shook their heads in disbelief, but others nodded as if Karen's word was gospel. Emily cried out, voice sharp and desperate. "That's not his. You planted it." Karen spun on her, lips curling. "Careful, Emily. Defend him too loudly, and you'll be his accomplice." Rick shoved me harder against the hood. Tommy tapped his nightstick against his palm, grinning like he'd been waiting for this moment. The bag gleamed under the streetlights, Karen waving it high. But I didn't beg. I didn't shout. I stayed silent, my eyes locked on hers. That silence rattled her. She thrived on fear and panic, but I gave her nothing. Her smirk faltered for a second, then returned sharper than before. "You see," she cried to the crowd, "he thinks the rules don't apply to him. But I am the law here." Her words echoed. A few neighbors shifted uncomfortably. "She can't say that." One whispered, "She's not the law." But Karen didn't care. She was drunk on her own performance. And me? I let her rant, because every word she spoke was another nail in her coffin. Rick and Tommy hauled me down the street like a prize catch, neighbors trailing behind in a twisted parade. Children peeked out from behind parents, wide-eyed. A teenager live-streamed it all, narrating like it was a reality show. Inside the HOA clubhouse, Karen transformed the space into her courtroom. A plastic chair became my prison. A folding table became her evidence display. And that tiny bag of powder became Exhibit A. She slammed it onto the table and turned to the neighbors packed inside. "This," she announced, "is what your so-called neighbor was hiding. While your children played outside, he brought poison into our homes. I told you he was dangerous." Gasps and murmurs filled the room. Emily shoved her way forward, trembling. "This is insane. You know he didn't do this." Karen whipped around, jabbing her finger. "Silence, Emily, or you'll be charged too." Even Rick and Tommy shifted uneasily. Karen's words were slipping from arrogance into delusion. I sat in the chair, wrists bound, jacket torn. To the neighbors, I looked defeated. But inside, my mind was sharp, cataloging every lie, every gesture. Because in my world, every lie is evidence. I leaned back, smiling faintly. "All I have to do," I whispered to myself, "is wait." As Karen strutted, waving her evidence, fate intervened. From my briefcase, carelessly tossed aside, something slid across the floor. A small black wallet. Mrs. Johnson noticed first. "What's that?" she murmured. Karen snatched it up, grinning. "Let's see what our criminal carries." She flipped it open and froze. Embossed in silver was the seal of the Federal Bureau of Investigation. Gasps filled the room. "That's federal," one neighbor whispered. Karen forced a laugh. "A fake. Probably ordered online." But her voice cracked. Rick frowned. Tommy shifted nervously. The crowd buzzed, filming closer. Doubt had been planted. I straightened, eyes on Karen. "You should have left it where it fell. Now everyone knows. You're not framing some ordinary man." Her nostrils flared. "Silence," she barked, clutching the badge. "You're nothing. When the police arrive, you'll be in prison orange." And then, outside, the wail of sirens pierced the night. Karen smirked again, desperate to cling to control. "Perfect timing. They'll be here any second, and then you're finished." I leaned forward, calm as ever. "You're right, Karen. They will be here. But not for me." The room went still. The neighbors leaned in. Karen's smirk twitched. I whispered, 2 minutes, Karen. That's all you've got left." Engines roared outside. Tires screeched. And then 3 black SUVs swung into the cul-de-sac, braking in perfect synchronization. The doors flew open. Out poured agents in tactical gear. Not the cheap knockoffs Rick and Tommy wore. Real FBI. Jackets marked with bold yellow letters. Weapons holstered, but hands ready. At the front strode Deputy Director Carter, tall, broad, silver-haired, radiating authority. His voice boomed as he entered the clubhouse. "Director Grant, apologies for the delay. Extraction team secure." The room erupted. Neighbors gasped. some even clapping hands over mouths. Emily's eyes flooded with tears of relief. Karen staggered backward, her face pale. "Director," she stammered. Carter held up his badge. "Deputy Director Carter, Federal Bureau of Investigation. And the man you assaulted, framed, and humiliated is Director Michael Grant, head of the FBI." Gasps turned into shouts. Phones zoomed closer. Rick's jaw dropped. Tommy cursed under his breath. Karen, trembling, tried to recover. "This is fake. A stunt. They're not real agents." Carter raised a hand, cutting her off. "We have your fingerprints all over that bag. We have live stream footage of you planting evidence. And now," he pointed at the cluster of teens still recording, "we have the entire internet watching you expose yourself." Karen clutched the table for balance, lips trembling. I stood slowly, one agent slicing the zip ties from my wrists. Adjusting my torn jacket, I stepped toward her. "Karen," I said, my voice low but thunderous, "the law doesn't belong to you. It belongs to the people. And tonight, it's coming for you." The room turned against her. Agents scanned the bag of powder, results flashing instantly. Karen's fingerprints clear as day. The neighbors gasped. "She planted it," someone shouted. "We saw her wave it around." Rick raised his hands. "I didn't know," he babbled. Tommy dropped his nightstick, trying to sneak out the back, but agents tackled him easily. Karen, desperate, clutched the bag to her chest. "This isn't mine." He put it there. "He's the criminal." Carter didn't even flinch. "Enough. You're done." The live stream caught every second. Millions would soon see the HOA queen crumble. Karen's knees buckled. She collapsed into the chair I had vacated, neon suit trembling under harsh lights. Her empire had shattered. The aftermath was swift. Karen, Rick, and Tommy were arrested, charged with impersonation of law enforcement, false imprisonment, and evidence tampering. News vans swarmed Oak Ridge. Clips of Karen screaming, "I am the law," went viral. Late-night comedians mocked her neon suits. But for the neighbors, the fear was gone. Emily squeezed my hand, tears streaming down her cheeks. "It's over," she whispered. I shook my head. Not over, but better. Because Karen's fall didn't just end her reign. It cracked open corruption across HOAs everywhere. Investigations spread, reforms began, and Oak Ridge Estates finally breathed again. One evening, neighbors gathered for a simple block party. No fines, no threats. Just laughter, kids on bikes, and roses blooming in Emily's garden once more. I raised a glass as Mrs. Johnson toasted. To Michael, our neighbor, our protector, and apparently, our FBI director. Cheers erupted. Karen had planted drugs in my car, thinking she had planted my downfall. Instead, she planted her own destruction. And in Oak Ridge Estates, the truth finally set everyone free. And that's how the self-proclaimed queen of our neighborhood fell. Karen thought she could frame me, humiliate me, and rule through fear. Instead, she exposed herself, and the truth destroyed her. For me, this wasn't just about winning against Karen. It was about showing that no one is above the law. Lies may shine for a moment, but they always collapse. Truth always wins. Now I want to hear from you. Backhand index pointing right. Who's the biggest Karen you've ever faced in your life? Drop in the comments. And if this story kept you hooked, hit that subscribe button for more tales where justice doesn't just knock. It kicks the door down.